Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind not top signature events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I am so excited to have my friend Autumn Rich on here as a guest. Autumn is the owner of the Panacea Collective, and Autumn produces some of the most spectacular outdoor events that anyone's ever seen. She has done everything from White House Easter egg rolls to Lollapalooza to top al fresco galas. She's done the whole spectrum again. She's literally seen it all. We were having a pretty fun conversation in the green room, so I know this one is really going to be a fun one, and we're just going to dive right in here. So, Autumn, welcome, and I'm thrilled to be here talking with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. I'm thrilled and honored to be on, and I have done a lot of events and have lots of great anecdotes and stories, and I'm just happy to be on and share with you.
Thank you so much. And all right, I want to know where your passion for creating and producing just magical off the hook events, that's what we're going to call them, comes from.
I think, Rob, I don't know exactly where it comes from. I think I was born with it. I was talking to my mother just yesterday, and she doesn't understand, and I don't understand. And I said, I just think I was born for this. I think it is you either have it or you don't. And when I moved right out of college to Washington, D.C. and started, producing events for what was then the First Lady, Barbara Bush, and other events for the Red Cross National Headquarters, the magic of working so hard, as you know, events are super hard, to seeing the magic on people's faces and the satisfaction of all your work come together. And I know it's a little bit cliche, but to see it just come together in a fashion that is magical and puts smiles on people's faces, and they walk away with an experience that they'll never forget. And I specialize in those events, I think, that are really unique in people's memories. And they say, do you remember that one event when we did X, or we did, we had that certain performer, or it was a surprise guest, um, or we overcame some obstacle, or, a cancellation, or a flight delay, or a plane that broke down in some cases, so I have a passion for it, and I've been doing it, for quite a while. And the best thing for me is my passion is still as strong as it was, when I began all those years ago.
It absolutely is, and it shows in every single thing you do. And I kind of want to start at the beginning. Tell me about, if you can remember, your first outdoor event you ever produced. Tell us about that and how outdoor events have changed since the first one you produced, to today.
Well, I don't know if this was my first, but this was a memorable because I mean, it has been a while and I have done a few events since the first one. But we were doing an event on the White House lawn, and it was a tea. It was an afternoon tea for the First Lady. And, when you're doing something at the White House, you kind of have a lot of things at your fingertips that you wouldn't otherwise have, which is great. But a thunderstorm rolled in, and, it rolled through right before, and it rolled right through, and we could continue the tea, but we had, everything had to be on pause until the thunderstorm ran through, so you could like set up. So everything was hurry after the thunderstorm, but we knew it wasn't going to be ongoing. And when you're doing it at the White House, you can't just run out and grab something. I mean, you go through so much security, as you know. But I think when you're doing outdoor events, you have to really take into consideration all the variables, and it's not just weather. And especially in today's times, I mean, that was back in the 19 probably 80s when we did that, or the 90s, early 90s. But I think that you have to take in consideration safety and weather and onlookers and trespassers and lightning is there's a difference in rain and lightning. If it's within 6 miles, you still have to close it down. If you're in a tent, you have to get out. You have to, and there's so many contingency plans. And so I really always try to have a backup for whatever it is, whether it's a tea at the White House, we could have moved inside if we had had to, or whether it's something, at a park in Austin or a park at Lollapalooza. We did the inaugural, which is always outside, in 20,000 in 2009 for President Obama, and it was 11 degrees. And we were doing the We Are One concert with every imaginable performer. And they were performing in 11-degree weather. And that's hard. You have to make sure that you have, heated dressing rooms, and it's hard on their vocal cords, and you don't think about that. But you have to have tea for those folks, and you have to have a warm heater on stage, and it's for 1 million people in the audience, and it was publicized and televised. So, there's all kinds of events from galas to festivals, and we're going to get into that, I'm sure, the different kinds of outdoor events. But always have a contingency. In the inaugural, you don't have a contingency. That's the hard part on something like that. It is outdoors, come rain or shine or snow or sleet.
Like the post office, right? So
Yes, yes, we're just like the post office, Rob.
it's going to happen no matter what. It will be delivered. The event will be delivered. So, all
Good
right.
story.
So, all right. So, you had talked about the White House tea, but, you had also said, handling events and onlookers. And a tea is going to be a much smaller, more intimate event than, say, the Easter egg roll, where you're going to have people from 8 to 88 on the lawn, or 8 months to 88 years on the lawn. So
Absolutely.
how did managing events at the White House teach you on about handling different types of event guests? Because I can't think of a better training ground than an event like that to do that.
Right. The year I started producing the White House Easter egg roll was the year that it went from approximately 1,000 to 1,200 people for the entire day to over 30,000, because we would have groups of 2 hours at 6,000. And so instead of, say, someone coming and getting to stay for 8 hours, which is how it had been for the 100 years prior, we really ran them through. You went and got a ticketing process, you were in a lottery, and it really opened it up to the public, which was interesting. So you did have that 8 months to 88, or 8 weeks to 100 years old, and you had to accommodate those folks, and we had to make it as special for their 2 hours as those folks who in the previous years had gotten to be there all day. So what we did was, create groups of areas on the White House lawn, and that included, and it was for the Obamas, so it included a lot of health and wellness. It included a kitchen where we had chefs that would come. It included a reading nook where we had celebrities come and read their books. It included the Easter egg roll, the typical Easter egg roll with celebrities, and NFL basketball players would come and play. And so we even paired with Whole Foods and did a wellness farmers market where the kids, if you got a piece of fruit, or you got to learn about something, or you got to sit and learn how seeds became, food. And so that was so interesting that we got to be on the team that really transformed the White House Easter egg roll from what it had been the previous 136 years, and don't quote me on that, but to the modern day model, which I don't know if it's still used because I haven't produced it in a few years, but during all of Obama years, it was where they really wanted it to be the people's house, and people would come from all over the nation, which was just incredible to watch.
That's amazing. And the question I have for you with that is, what advice would you give to someone looking to scale their event? Because really that's what you were doing. You were creating multiple different activations so that people could kind of go to different things. And you were also kind of changing the time duration that people were there. So I'd love to hear your take and advice on what you would give to somebody who's looking to do that.
Well, I would always scale because I always think bigger is better. And that is my motto of you want to grow something. I am looking at some events in the future that are going to be smaller and more, curated. But, you take each of these as a bite of their own, and you treat them each like their own individual event. So for 2 hours, you have an event with 8 different pieces, and you really just focus on those 2 hours and what happens, and treat each individual area as its own event, and you make sure that you have all the right people in place that are good managers. You have all of the ticketing in place. And that's, this is going to be from the White House to a gala that goes from 300 to 600 to 800 as an organization grows, or a festival, as you know, like ACL, Austin City Limits Music Festival, which grew from, 25,000 in its first year to now 80,000 plus. And so you really, really take them in bite-sized pieces. But in order for a nonprofit who's growing and needing to make, their money or for their operating expenses, you really want to make sure that you're using that wisely and you're not scaling too fast. And you don't scale too fast for your audience. You scale to the audience that really is that you're going to attract. And you do it in a way that is slow and mindful, and don't get ahead of yourself. And make sure that you have all the pieces in place that you can be successful. And the keys to those success are, timelines and budgets and really forecasting and the time to do it. And we've put together events in 2 to 3 months, and definitely you need more time to make sure that you're doing all of the right things and putting all the right pieces in place.
Talk about preparation here and like how long, like what is the right amount of time that you would recommend somebody be planning for, an annual festival or an annual gala or an annual, event at the White House? Like how long of a production timeline should there be?
I mean, it varies greatly. We produced the first Austin City Limits Music Festival in 3 months, and it was crazy, but a huge success, obviously. For the White House Easter egg roll, or the Texas Medal of Arts Awards, or the Texas Tribune Festival, other events that I do that have outdoor elements, always I plan or would like to have a year. I'm starting one event now that's going to be spring of 2027. And so we're going to have, a 15-month leeway on that. I think a year is what you need. I think if you're doing it in multiple years and you're repeating, then there's going to be the same elements of your planning. But I really think with fundraising and whether and when you're working with a committee versus not a committee, I think that's a big part too, because it takes a little bit longer to get committees in place, to get them where they need to be, to get them up to speed, to get them in, whether it's an auction or publicity or fundraising, however you want to do that, you are always going to need to have a good runway for that. And, I could do something in less time for sure and have, but I think ideally I would like to have that year.
Well,
In a perfect world, but
well,
we know in advance, never a perfect world.
it never is a perfect world, and you heard it here first. The first one, autumn planned in first ACL, autumn planned in 3 months. I don't know how you did that. And now it's this iconic thing, beloved the world over. And there was something in your answer earlier that I want to dive a little bit more into, and that was kind of treating kind of each experience as its own event in and of itself. And I know outside that can be challenging to find staffing in particular, especially if it's really hot, because at ACL, it can be a lovely 81 and it can also be a sultry 96 and humid. And who you're going to find may probably vary based on those temperatures. So like what is your strategy and key to making sure that you're finding people that can be effective regardless of what the weather elements are?
I think that's a great question. I thank you for asking it. And it is very important. I'm lucky that I've been in Austin for some time now and been doing events, and I have built an incredible, incredible team of volunteers, an incredible team of contractors who are experts in what they do. And I think, no matter what the weather, we are always going to be prepared. It's sometimes cold at ACL. It was cool last September at the Texas Tribune Festival. The Glow in the Park Gala has been warm, and it's been downright hot. I think you have to prepare for those. You do misting fans, you provide ponchos for a light mist rain, you provide fans, or you provide, I was doing an event out in the hill country and it turned chilly. And literally, we went to Nordstrom and bought every pashmina they had for men and women, every scarf, every pashmina, and passed them out to the 200 people. And they were so appreciative. I was just doing an event in Middleburg, Virginia, and it was 12 degrees. We were in a tent, but we went and got blankets. And, people were sitting on the blankets or wrapping in the blankets because the event was in a tent. I just think you really have to prepare, and you have to prepare your staff to know what to do. So in the event, of these things that are challenging, these unforeseeable events or unforeseeable, weather changes. I think I love it that I work with people who innately know what to do. They don't have to come and ask me. They just let me know that it's happening. And I think, having a competent team is to me the most important thing and in its experience. And the director of White House Advance is one of my contractors, and he lives in Fredericksburg, and he's retired from White House Advance, but he like knows what to do in case of a late flight, or you just find these folks that you trust and you let them run with it. And you because if I tried to control every detail, we would have a disaster, frankly. So I have to put a lot of trust and faith into people that I, have worked with and are tried and true, and I trust their judgment implicitly.
I'm glad you brought the element of trust. And I can kind of see that because I will say you are unflappable. Anytime something happens, like you go with intention. You're not animated. You just go and you handle it and you do it. You know, what advice would you give to anyone hosting an event? It doesn't have to be an event producer, but like, an organization. How do you handle those unexpected moments? Because there is no such thing as a perfect event. If there was, everyone do it. But how do you keep calm and carry on, let's just say, as the Brits like to say.
I mean, I have a high strung personality. I do. And if I didn't, I wouldn't do what I do. But when I get to event time, it is the seas are calm, and the seas are going to stay calm, and nothing's going to ruffle us. If we are churning on the inside, no one's going to see it on the outside. It's the old duck saying. They're little, you know, um,
Water off a duck's back.
I don't know what duck feet. It goes off the duck's back, but their little feet are paddling so fast underneath that you can't ever see it. And I experienced in my young career a bout of I panicked, and I did something. I said, I will never ever let that happen again. No one will ever see any panic on my face. We won't see anything but stoicism. It's going to be taken care of. It's going to be fine. If you think it's fine, it's going to be fine. And if you think it's fine, and your client thinks it's fine, and that's what we give off, everyone's going to be fine. They're not going to panic. If you have a plan, you have a plan of action, you have a safety plan, you have a weather plan, you have a what if a speaker doesn't show up, what if a staff member doesn't show up. I was doing an event at the LBJ library, and my lead producer on it got COVID, like a bad case of COVID. And we had everything in such good order with a production schedule, context sheet, run of show, that her second in command stepped right up. We just filled in the others, and no one ever knew the difference. Not one person knew that one person was sick and not on site for the entirety of the event. And so, I feel like I've learned enough through the years to do the pre-planning. You plan and plan and plan, and you plan for worst case scenario and every case scenario. And then you just like I said, you let your trusted folks soar. And what I do is just I'm just a little bit of the like, I'm just making sure from 30,000 feet that it's all going. But I don't think there's any sense of panicking. I don't think there is. That does no good for anyone to get excited or scream or treat anyone with any disrespect, or I think being unflappable is just, it's part of my success and part of my journey in life as well. I mean, I'm a single mom. I raised a son by myself since he was 2, and working in a high pressure job. I feel like it just is one of my survival kit staples. I mean,
That's I love how you just kind of explain that, and just kind of don't let them see on the outside what you may be feeling on the inside. And if you don't panic, no one else will either. That's what leadership's about. And I know we were talking in the green room about how event producers are the event COO. You're part of that C-suite. So if they see you're calm, everyone you're leading underneath will remain calm as well, because we'll get through it. These things happen.
the
Weather
clock keeps,
happens.
yes, The clock keeps ticking, and the event is going to go on whether you panic or whether you don't panic, Rob. It is going to keep happening, and it's how you handle it. I mean, I was doing an event for Willie Nelson at the LBJ Library again, and we changed the entire run of show after the show had started because of an entertainer's schedule. And we changed every piece of it. And it was interesting to see how well the vendors responded, the MC responded, my client responded, everyone responded. And it was not a big, I made it not a big deal. Inside, I was freaking out, I will tell you. But we changed the entirety of all of it and it worked perfectly. And no one other than the producers knew the difference. So you can change things even on the fly.
That's amazing. I know people that went to that event and said what a flawlessly executed event it was and how beautiful it was to celebrate his 90th. I know exactly what event you're talking about, and that goes to show what a pro you are. And I think this is a good time to kind of talk about the different types of events because you've kind of talked a little bit about festivals and corporate events and galas. So talk about the differences of how you handle an outdoor festival versus an outdoor gala versus an outdoor corporate event because each of them have very different goals, objectives, audiences, and the like.
I think that's an amazing question as well. And I do think I do approach them all differently. I think each one has a different audience, each one has a different purpose. A music festival is to make people come out and enjoy and explore and discover. And you're in any kind of weather. It could be cold, it could be hot, it's rain or shine. You could have galoshes on, your wellies and a poncho, or you could have, very little clothing on, as some people at the festivals do. But you have to, I plan that very differently. I plan it with the outcome is fun for those folks. From a business side, it's to make money, obviously. All of these are to make money. Some of the corporates are going to be for marketing. But I think you are providing an experience which is casual and fun and you're going to be with a lot of people and it's going to be crowded and you have to plan for that. You have to plan for hydration. You have to plan for crowdedness. You have to plan for overcrowding and people being late, your staff being late because of a traffic. And you plan early and you overstaff. So, and you really like it's so fun to be so creative at a festival because really there is no limit on that. We've gotten to do, craft bars. We get to do fun snacks. You get to do creative drinks. You get to do great signage and really fun innovation and experiential marketing kind of things. That's what I love about the festivals. And I started in the VIP part of the festivals and creating those VIP luxury experiences when I was with C3 to now doing it for clients. So it's different also from both sides. So creating ACL in the VIP experience, it was new to festivals. There wasn't a VIP experience. And it was written up in interestingly when I started the Cabana program at Lollapalooza in Rolling Stone. And it's at Autumn Rich is creating these experiences where you can have a corporate individual party or you can have a VIP experience. There's a number of different ways, but you're going to pay for it. And that is what, these people are wanting. So that's the festival part of it. If you go to a corporate event, I mean, my corporate clients are amazing and I love them, but they're very different. They're either it's a retreat or it is perhaps a reward. It could be a learning experience or it's a marketing event. And I think with corporate, they have a very clear marketing goal in mind. If they don't have a clear marketing goal in mind, it's the first thing that I ask them to determine. What are our goals for this? Is it financial? Is it publicity? Is it marketing to your own inside folks? Is it getting your team mentally ready for the next year? Is it to reward them for a year that they've done, and excelled? And I've done them in Costa Rica and Hawaii and, everywhere for these kinds of corporate events. And I think you really have to make sure that you look at the goals of that and what they're trying to establish. So it's very different. And the corporate events I'm doing right now, they really want unique experiences. They want to come and they want to have a coffee cart and they want it to have printing on it. And they want to have I went to we do a retinal scan where they can tell what kind of mood and what the physical well-being, their mental well-being is, and this is coming into some of these AI conferences that I'm doing, which is very interesting. And so I take each client and I look at for corporate what is their business, what is their goal, and then we get to brainstorm. And those are some of my most fun things because I really get to brainstorm and be creative. And I love doing the gifts and the gift baskets because you get to really explore very lovely, like experience type gifts. When I'm doing a gala, galas are 9 times out of 10 for a nonprofit. Nonprofit, a lot of times, are really counting on the fundraising and for their operating expenses that come from a gala. So you have to be very, very much more budget conscientious when you're doing something for a nonprofit. One thing I'm very great at is staying on budget. And if there's any reason to go over budget, there's a good reason for it. And you always work with your client on that. But also with nonprofits and galas, you're working normally with committees. And so, it is sometimes hard to steer a committee, or if they have something in mind that you don't think is best for it, you either embrace it and figure out how it is going to be best for the event, or you steer them towards another solution that everyone likes that is better for the event. Anywhere from linens to, we do this gala, the glow in the park, and there's a no glass policy. So how do you do a gala with no glass? I mean, it's not a gala if it's not beautiful. And so we've really had to learn, and this is my 5th year to do it, how to make it elegant and gorgeous and use recyclables or use plasticware, but it's still going to be an elegant, lovely event. And that's where vendors come in. And you have to trust your vendors from tent to table, chair, flatware, linens to help you be creative in that and be creative in a budget scenario where you're having to stay within something you can't go and bust a budget on something like that. So every scenario is very different. I love that I have a company that I can do all these kinds of events. I get, I feel privileged. I was talking to someone this morning who was interviewing me for, for an article, who said you just do so many kinds. How do you keep them in your head? And like I said, we go back to planning and documents and great staffing and people I trust. But I think it's fun that I get to do so many different types, and that's why I'm in it for 35 years, and I'm not stopping anytime soon.
You're just warming up. And I want to go back to what you were saying about budget. I want to go back to that piece because it's so critical. Talk about, what is one thing, the first thing an organization should do to A, keep the budget in line, but B, what should they do when they start to see things starting to kind of be a runaway freight train with money?
Well, I think you have to set a budget and it has to be within your overall like goal. You have to look at your annual expenditures, you have to look at your annual giving, you have to be very realistic. And you also have to be realistic with your event. You can't put on a $500,000 event with $250,000 budget. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to understand that this is going to be the style of event we're going to do. And so you have to be very realistic. I don't let things spiral out of control. And I'm not saying that from a conceited or braggadocious kind of place. I'm not, but I'm very realistic when I plan a budget, and it's always in conjunction with my client. And we get bids before we do a budget. I've been doing it in Austin long enough. It's going to go up every year. Insurance goes up, rent goes up, staffing goes up, everything goes up. So be realistic that you can't do an event on a 2021 budget coming out of COVID in 2025. They were not the same budgets. And so you have to really be cognizant of that and be realistic and get true bids and from trusted vendors. It goes back to, I trust my staff and I trust my contractors, but you have to trust your vendors as well, that they are not going to be marking up, that they're going to give you the best deal. I've been working with enough, for long enough with these vendors that normally I will say, here's my budget. Can you do this for me? And they'll either give me a discount or they'll say, no, I can't do it, but here's what we can do in lieu of it. And here's how we can meet your budget and not sacrifice quality or ambiance or aesthetic or what have you. Also do events with partners. MML is a great partner of Glow in the Park, and they really bend over backward to make it the most incredible meal in the most beautiful setting for a price that we really can afford. And then they give a little bit on top of that because they're, invested in the community. So I think you have to have trusted partners and vendors. And normally I have a budget. A budget is a part of a production call each week. We go over not only what is happening with the decor, what is happening with the table sales, what is happening with the entertainment, but we also go over where we are with the budget. I mean, I had a call this morning and it was budget is right on track. And so I think you never leave that out of a part of an agenda for a production call. And I have production meetings usually either bi-weekly or as we get close to an event weekly with a client. And I think that's just as important as any other aspect of the event.
God, that was so well said. And, communication, that's the undercurrent of what you were talking about is you communicate regularly with your clients. And in addition to budget, what is another, staying on budget, what is another thing organizations should look for when they're hiring an event producer for an outdoor event?
I mean, I think you have to go with reputation and experience and like, proof is in the pudding, so to speak. Um, I'm known to be on budget, and I'm also known if something is coming in over budget, that it is the first thing I do is call the client and say, here's the scenario where we can either raise the budget or we can cut something. What's most important? Do we cut something? Do we cut a tent or do we cut some furniture or do we cut some AV? Do we cut some lighting? Do we cut the valet? Is it really needed? Are people going to ride share to this event? Or do we cut back on decor or floral? Or do we go ask them, our vendors to extend us some sort of discount or be a sponsor in lieu of some of it? And so I do think, I look at the big items. It's a venue rental, it is security, it is decor, furniture. As you know, after I went out from C3, I started a furniture company to enhance my event production company, and we're now all rolled into one, which is an amazing gift to have because I get to extend discounts sometimes when I need to. I still have to charge retail a lot of the time, but I get to extend that to clients who are investing in both the production and the rentals. But I think one thing that has changed is rentals because the soft seating has come from 15 years ago, there was no soft seating. You just did hotel chairs and you would grab a chair from the hotel lobby for a stage. And now, as you can see from like South by Southwest activations, stages are professionally done. I mean, they are rendered and designed by professionals, and I get to design those sometimes. And it's one of the biggest thrills I've had over the course of change. But that's a budget implication too, because you are spending a little more at decor. But I'm finding people spend less. They're doing coffee bars instead of alcoholic bars. They are doing other expenses where alcohol can be $10 a cup or a drink, and where you have coffee, which is $2 or $3 a cup. So I think people are really trying to think what's important to people. Um, meditation spaces have become much more important in like a South by Southwest. And I know I'm venturing off your question here a little bit, so forgive me. But it just one thing, snowballs into another in my head when I start talking about these, items on a budget. But I think you have to look at the big items and make sure that the safety, the ambiance, the look, the beauty of it, the entertainment, the stage looks, they're all very important. And then it kind of trickles down from there where you can, if you need, how many bands can you get away with two bands or can you do three? You know, I think it's all in the planning and expectations.
Well, I love that you how you kind of talked about, if you don't have to do alcohol, you can do like you gave alternatives, and I think that's where a lot of organizations get stuck. It's like, well, what can I do? It's well, lots of people like coffee, so you can do that and probably cut that line item by 50, 60, 70% or even more. It's just I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that that's something that people just don't, they don't think about and they panic, and like we talked about earlier, and just staying calm and just being like, okay, I can do this. And I love how you just laid out, you call them right away and you just say, we either increase the budget or we can reduce something a little bit here. And it won't really affect the guest experience very much,
Right.
maybe on the margins, but no one's really going to notice.
100%. I think you're so right there. No one notices as long as you're providing them with a beautiful experience from start to beginning. And it goes from invite to, the thank yous. It's not once they get on site. It's not once they get to the venue. It's how you treat them as all through the process, which is lovely.
Okay, so, talking about through the process, one of the things with South by and a lot of these, or, a lot of these events in particular, are high profile people, celebrities, people with detail, people with Secret Service detail. So, what advice do you give, especially outside? That's a whole different bailiwick than doing an indoor event. So, what advice would you give to an organization looking to bring in high profile individuals for an outdoor event in particular?
Outdoor events, I mean, if you're dealing with the President of the United States, for instance, an outdoor event is going to be out of your hands because the Secret Service is going to dictate what and how you do things. And it is out of my control. I can plan it and I can in my head make a plan and explain it to them, but they're going to dictate that. So you go from that extreme, which is one extreme, and in the times we're living now, I have to be very careful with any celebrity or person of stature. And so, I'm revamping an entire security plan right now based on the current climate of where we are. So I think you have to be able to be nimble. You have to be able to say, okay, are we going to move it inside? But I think you have to be very thorough and you have to, set all expectations with security armed, non-security armed walkthroughs, really transparency on with the team of the celebrity. I have one high profile person who's been calling me, and the event's a couple months away, but they have a detail and they are a news personality, but they've been having threats. And so the level of threat, and I work with Austin Police Department on the guarding of a lot of those folks, and they listen to the chatter. They start a month out with monitoring anything that they hear that's going to be a protest or and communicate with me regularly. I mean, like for Austin city limits, there's a perimeter. It depends on if the event is closed or open to the public. It depends on if it's ticketed or non-ticketed. So you take precautions no matter what at this point. You take precautions and you're vigilant. If you see something, say something has never been more important. And I am doubling on security on a number of different events. Insurance, terrorism insurance, you know, um, pandemic insurance, all of those have come into play. So insurance is much more of a player and a budget line item than it ever was 10 years ago, Rob. And so it really is something that no one can live without. And, I have two or three insurance folks and national folks that I work with. And so, security, um, due diligence, safety, following the plan of professionals, because I'm not a security professional, but I'm employing the former White House Director of Advance for security for one of my events because he really knows what we need to do and he can deal with those details that are coming through, whether it's for a senator or for a governor, which we're going to have, or a celebrity and a musician, and what kind of backstage and access points and credentials you have to get from one place to another at any event, all come into huge amount of importance.
I'm glad you brought the security part and the cost that goes into that for some of these folks, because I think people get so excited if they get somebody high profile and then they realize underneath there is probably tens of thousands of dollars in a cost to doing that they probably either weren't necessarily thinking of when they did this pie in the sky ask and they actually said yes, and it's like, oh my god, I scramble, now I know what to do. So I'm really glad that you kind of detailed the different types of insurance and all that that's involved now that wasn't 10 years ago. Absolutely.
Yeah, and for instance, the Willie Nelson event that I mentioned, it was an outdoor event because he, had COVID during, and this was still COVID. He insisted it be outside. And so security did go up. And so we did have to increase it. And he's, so there are parameters that they're setting, the celebrities are setting. So you have to kind of not bend to their will, so to speak, but you have to accommodate their wishes because they're only looking out for their own safety and well-being. And he's a national treasure, and at 90 years old, we weren't going to put him into a space that he wasn't comfortable and his team wasn't comfortable. And everyone adhered to it and wore masks, and everyone was tested the day of, and and no one. The good thing is it was Willie Nelson, so no one really cared. And no, but everyone is used to and knows that we have those parameters now. You you kind of it's part of our life. And so if you have to test to be backstage, it's fine.
Very well said. And we've talked about outside going in, and you touched upon it at the beginning, but I want to talk a little bit about rain plans because that's something I often get a question about when people are hosting outdoor events. So talk about them and talk about how you factor that as a part of either your production budget or your just overall approach of producing an event.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's always going to be a rain plan if the event is outside at this point. I used to wing it and not do them. And got lucky for the most part. I've never had an event cancel because of a rainstorm, luckily. Um, I think that, alternative venues are one thing. Normally, when you're doing an alternative venue, it changes your event. So you have to say, I'm willing to change my event in the case that it's looking like rain. Or you plan for a tent. A tent can be anywhere for, six or 700 people. It can be 20, 30, $40,000. So that's a budget chunk. Also, I think your event can stay, but you've still got to get people in the door. And so, where they're parking, how they're getting there. So, providing umbrellas. It's always a huge part of it. And really telling people how to dress for in case of rain. I think that the third thing is just rain plan insurance or event cancellation insurance. And if you are raising money, I don't think there's, unless you are willing to go to an alternative venue, you have to get the insurance that in case, there is a rain or there however much it is. And I think with this year in Texas, we've seen, the gamut of storms and unfortunate events. You have to be really careful. And so I think rain insurance, you have to be careful what it looks like. You have to, because there are parameters and, what people don't, they think, oh, if the event cancels, it looks like rain, we're just going to cancel it and it'll kick in. It's very precise and scientific. It goes down to a quarter inch per 2 hours to a half inch. And if it's between the hours of X and X, that will kick in. If it's 12 hours prior or 12 hours, after, then it won't. So you have to be very careful and you have to read the fine print. And the insurance agents that we use are really great in walking us through that and making sure that we're covered in the way that we need to be. But I do think those are kind of your three options: is change a venue, cover your venue, or just rain insurance and weather insurance in general.
This is I have learned so much today talking to you. I mean, we could literally talk all day, but I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to end with
We
this.
could.
I want to end with this one question because I know you'll give an amazing answer, and that is, what is one thing all successful outdoor events have in common?
I am going to say you play to your environment. So I'm going to say, if you're in a garden, do a garden. If you're in a field, do a field dinner. If you're in a festival environment, be a festival. Don't try to make something that it's not. And do everything you can to make it extraordinary and special and unique and fun. People want to go to events to engage with others, make it where they can do that. I think people want to go to events to have an experience and to be moved. And I think you have to do that with your program. You have to do that with your environment, with how people are treated from when they get there until when they leave. I don't think, I mean, you asked for one thing, and so I am going to say the environment that you create, and that it encompasses all of these things together. It's hard for me to put one element, but I do think it's how people, what the feeling is when people leave. You know, did they love it? Do they believe in the cause? Are they going to come back and support it? You need to create that unique and lovely experience for them.
The environment of feeling. That's how I'm going to end that. That was really beautiful and really well said. And what I appreciate about that answer was it was almost like you were saying the environment, that's almost a person in and of itself. Like the festival is almost a character on the canvas.
Absolutely, 100%. The galas are absolutely a person. They're a character in my book. Willie Nelson's event for the LBJ Library and all of the things I've done for all of these special clients that I have. Always, I mean, they're memories like friends of mine, you know, and I'm making all good friends when I'm doing these events, which is one of the perks of doing my incredibly lucky job. But, you know, they all have a special place in my heart. Every single event has a super special place in my heart. And so that's what I love about this, that you know, I get to create and make a living at something I really, really love. And, you know, I've worked with people I love and I work with clients I love. So I'm in a win-win-win situation.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. And you can tell just by the amazing answers you gave and just by your tone of voice, you truly, genuinely love it. And I can see why you are just one of the best of the best of the best event producers out there. So again, Autumn, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we had the time to chat today and do this.
Rob, thank you so much. I always love talking to you. And I think this was a lovely way to talk about all kinds of events and fundraising. And I hope someone gets something super fabulous out of this. And we're going to have to do more.
You're going to have to come back because there are so many things so many more things that we could talk about. Maybe we do want
I
to just
will
kind
come
of
back anytime you
the wildest moments by
Anytime.
Autumn Rich. And
We'll do that. We'll do that in a separate one.
absolutely. And for more information about Autumn Rich and the Panacea Collective, please visit thepanaceaco.com or on Instagram at Panacea Collective. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.